Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show.
You're listening to The Tom Daniel Show, and I'm your host, Tom Daniel. Today's episode is in honor of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, drafted by Thomas Jefferson and adopted by the 56 delegates to the Second Continental Congress. John Hancock, of course, was the first to sign it in Philadelphia on July 4th, with most of the other signatures coming in a month later. So let me ask you a question. When you picture good old Thomas Jefferson, what do you see? You probably see a statesman, a philosopher, a writer hunched over parchment at his desk, drafting words that would outlive him. What you probably don't see in your head is a violin. And yet, Thomas Jefferson could play, y'all. Not casually, not recreationally, but he was by all accounts quite good. And today I want to explore what that actually means, because Jefferson's musicianship is not a trivial background biographical footnote. It tells us something much larger about how he and his world understood knowledge itself. And as usual, it tells us something about what we've quietly lost. Now, Thomas Jefferson began studying the violin as a young boy and continued throughout his life. Now, this wasn't unusual among educated men of his time, but what was unusual was the seriousness with which he pursued it. Now, he practiced regularly throughout his life. He collected music, he performed, and perhaps most tellingly, he used music socially. Now, when I say used music socially, I don't mean he put it on a playlist. There was no Jefferson's Greatest Hits Colonial Edition. Music in Jefferson's world required participation. If there was music in the room, somebody had to be making it. And Jefferson often did. He played for gatherings, for dances, for courtship. In fact, it's widely believed that his violin playing played a role in his early relationship with Martha Wayles Skelton. Now, that's something you don't hear much anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to dedicate this sonata to my future wife. Today, if you try that, you're getting blocked before the second movement. Now, to understand Jefferson's musicianship, you have to understand something critical about the 18th century, the 1700s. You have to kind of do that backwards math thing. Music was not separate from education back then. It was a part of it. The Enlightenment did not divide intellect from skill. If you were educated, you were expected to be able to do things. You didn't just read about architecture. You designed. You didn't just study agriculture. Oh, you got your hands dirty and you planted. And you didn't just think about music. You played it. Music was considered essential because it trained the mind in ways that abstract thought alone could not. Music required discipline, memory, coordination, listening, and judgment in real time. In other words, it required full embodiment. And this is where Jefferson becomes particularly interesting, because his musical life reflects a broader assumption of his time, that knowledge must be lived, not merely stored. Thomas Jefferson is also famous for his library. In fact, after the Library of Congress was burned in 1814, Jefferson sold his personal collection to help rebuild it. That library contained thousands of volumes: history, philosophy, science, law, and, of course, music. But here's the key distinction. Jefferson didn't treat music as something to be archived. No, he treated it as something to be activated. Owning sheet music to him was not the end of the process. It was the beginning. The page was not the music. The performance was. And this is where we begin to see a sharp contrast with the modern world. Today, we're really good at storing music. We can access virtually any piece ever recorded instantly. But that access does not require any participation. It just requires a thumb, maybe two if you're feeling ambitious. Jefferson's world required something else entirely. If you wanted music, you had to be a part of it. In Jefferson's time, music was woven into the fabric of daily life. It was present in homes, gatherings, churches, dances, and most importantly, music was communal. Music was not something you consumed, it was something you shared. If someone brought a violin, somebody else might sing. If someone sat at a keyboard, others would gather around. There was no clear line between the performer and the audience, no gap. Everyone was, to some degree, both performer and audience. Now compare that to today. Today we have perfected the art of passive listening. We sit, we stream, we absorb. And, while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, something changes when music is no longer something that we do anymore, but something we just receive. Thomas Jefferson lived in a world where music required your presence, and that requirement changed everything about its role in human life. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show. We'll be right back.
What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show.
Welcome back to the Tom Daniels Show. I kind of half expected Mary Mac to go in a kind of a fife and drum, Yankee Doodle, theatrical kind of direction for this episode, but they pleasantly surprised me. That was an example of what kind of music you might hear on any given day in Colonial, Virginia. Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. Now, let's be clear. This is not nostalgia for powdered wigs and candlelight when we talk about Thomas Jefferson and his music. Jefferson's world had its limitations, but in the realm of music, it maintained something that we've largely surrendered, and that's the expectation of participation. Today, we often treat music as the finished product, something perfected elsewhere and then delivered to us. In Jefferson's time, music was something in process. It was imperfect, it was immediate, and it was human. If a note cracked, then it just cracked. If the tempo drifted, then, it drifted. And yet the value was not diminished because the value was not in perfection, it was in presence. And Jefferson understood something that is easy to overlook. Music is not just sound, it's action. It is a physical engagement with time, with structure, with other people. And perhaps most importantly, it is a way of knowing. Not knowing about something, but knowing it directly. Now, the difference is subtle, but it's important. You can read about music your entire life and never truly know it. Or you can pick up an instrument, struggle through a scale, miss a few notes, and suddenly understand something no book can fully explain. Thomas Jefferson chose the second path, and that choice tells us something about the intellectual culture he inhabited. It was not enough to understand ideas. You had to inhabit them. So, yeah, Thomas Jefferson could definitely play, y'all. And that simple fact opens a window into a much larger world, a world where music was not separated from life, where knowledge required embodiment, and where participation was not optional. It was just assumed. We often remember Jefferson for what he wrote, and rightly so. But perhaps we should also remember that he played. Because in that act, in the drawing of a bow across strings, we see a different kind of understanding, one that cannot be archived one that cannot be downloaded or streamed, one that must be lived. And if Jefferson were here today, he might not ask what's on your playlist. He might ask a far more uncomfortable question. He might ask, what do you play? And a lot of us would suddenly get very quiet. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Happy 250th for the Declaration of Independence. Keep listening. Keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune in to the Tom Daniels Show. You'll discover the world of melodies and stories that you might not know. But keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. The Tom Daniels Show.